Welcome to Keeping It Together.
This is a series of recorded conversations about why we need to reframe the topic of self-care from being a reward to being a requirement.
Are you an entrepreneur, business owner, or leader who is struggling to prioritize yourself while keeping your company going?
We get it because we're also business owners and we've had to juggle to keep it all together too.
Our goal is to share our resources and our perspective on topics related to all aspects of personal wellness to help our fellow business owners and leaders thrive as people.
Yeah, so that they can support their companies and employees to flourish too.
I'm Genevieve Lagasegor from Marquee Benefits.
And I'm Jackie Faulkner from Thrive State. Welcome to our conversations.
Well, I'm excited to be here this morning.
Yeah, me
right?
too.
We're going to have a fun conversation.
Totally.
And we're so excited to have viewers to be with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, so
Yes.
It's really fun to actually be pressing record.
Yes. Going in off the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it.
Yeah. So why don't we start with telling people how we met?
Sure. I think it's at the Sandbox, wasn't it? It was here
it
at
was
the
here.
Sandbox
It
Center,
was here.
which is great that we're recording here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Just to commemorate.
Exactly. Full circle.
I actually don't remember exactly when we met. I do think it was here. I think it might have been at a Women in Business
sounds like a
event.
Yep. It sounds, well, there's been so many great events here for us and like-minded and like entrepreneurs that are leading a business and meeting other women that are also doing that. And that's fantastic. It's such a great way to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we connected, we chatted, and it was just kind of this conversation that kept going.
Yeah.
Because we had just a very shared sort of passion for our respective industries, but also how they overlap and kind of complement each other. And really, I mean, I can't speak for you. I know for me, I'm super passionate about employee mental health as like the ultimate strategy for businesses to succeed.
Absolutely.
And then having conversations with you, it's definitely seemed like you're looking at ways to be innovative and creative with solutions for people to take care of their people. So
exactly, it's such a big part. Like as an employee benefits consultant, our focus is on how do we make our employees thrive? Like how do we give them access? How do we bring them to our organizations? How do we retain them? How do we use those strategies, right? So like huge passion. And a big part of that is education, right? Education is such a big part of that. And I think with our conversations, we also wanted to not dismiss the importance of the business leader in that equation.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's so much of what impacts employees' wellness is the wellness of the leader and the extent to which they're taking care of their staff and the decisions that they're making about things like benefits or whatever else impacts the employees. Yeah.
And so having recording our conversation, I think, was the key to provide content, to provide access and resources to our communities, to our clients, so that they could feel empowered to take those steps, right? And some of those steps are going to be very personal, right? Very personal.
Absolutely.
And so this recording, hopefully you get a lot of content, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, just value. I think some perspective on from two different people, two different views of the same topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in our series, I think we'll talk about different overall topics. Some will be high level, then we'll do some deep dive, and we'll just approach it from different perspectives, right? Yeah. So do we want to kind of talk about why it's important for business owners, leaders in organization to take attention or make a priority this personal wellness we want to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, from my perspective, I think I think leaders sometimes underestimate what a significant role model they are to people. I think they don't always realize how much people are looking to them as an indicator of like what's okay, what's not okay. You know, things like, you know, working through their breaks or working after hours. Those kind of things seem like little maybe insignificant decisions. But if the leader isn't really paying attention to those things, they absolutely trickle out into how people believe that they're also supposed to behave or take care of their personal wellness. So I think there's a huge element of just role modeling, really truly role modeling. You can't expect people to just do what you say and not what you do.
Right.
And then I think that it's also like there's not a one size fits all.
Yep.
And personal wellness for everybody looks so different, and you can tell when someone is thriving or not,
Or is genuine.
or is genuine.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you know, I think there's the role for the leader is definitely to do what works for them in terms of taking care of their personal wellness, and doing so gives permission to the people around them to do what they need to do to prioritize their personal wellness. So it's okay if it looks different, but people can tell. You can't, if it's genuine, people can tell if it's real, if you're genuinely, you know, thriving and vibrantly kind of healthy and well,
Yeah.
or if you're just struggling to get through the day.
Yeah. And from my side, I'm exposed to a lot of data on chronic disease, right?
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
so when we start diving in on the utilization on the side of should that be drugs or, you know, practitioner utilization, what we realize is the data tells us that chronic disease is very widespread. And it's actually impacting more people than we anticipate, because a lot of it is not visible, right?
You don't see it. What
So
counts as chronic disease?
so things like cardiovascular disease, respiratory diseases, diabetes, sort of the big ones, right? And we know that 1 in 5 Canadians is dealing with those three. Other chronic diseases would be arthritis. It's a very expensive one, actually.
Right.
And of course, depression, right? And more conversations are being had about how cancer is falling into a chronic disease state rather than, you know, more of an acute situation. It becomes more of a chronic disease, and it's starting to be managed as so. So knowing that, and one of the things that struck me was 4 out of 5 people have a risk factor.
Oh wow, I didn't know it was that high.
It's huge.
Yeah.
To me, that was the stat that was just like, we all have what we consider maybe a genetic risk factor. There could be just lifestyle risk factors, but knowing that the stat is that big, and hypertension is another sort of, or high blood pressure. 1 in 6 Canadians don't know they have an issue with hypertension.
Right. It's
So
the
it's not that
invisible killer. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So when you start looking at the stats and how many Canadians live with diabetes, and how 50% of those, millions of people, like I think it's 3.4 million in Canada, 50% of those are working age, and that they don't have a good control over their insulin intake. So I'm not going to pretend to be the specialist on this, but I see it in our programs and our utilization that we see for employers. And so realizing the impact of chronic disease on your health, physical and mental, is why it's, to me, is a priority.
Right.
As we age, right?
Right. Interesting. So given those like almost alarming numbers, what do you think is stopping people from doing the things that we all know we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
What's getting in the way of people actually taking care of themselves? And business leaders, you know, if we're saying it's this extra pressure or expectation of leaders to be leading the way in terms of how they take care of themselves. What's stopping them?
I know for me it was, and I know as a mom, I find that we have this tendency to put others forward. And I think business leaders are in that similar role too.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot riding on their shoulder. And during this pandemic, it has tested us to our limits and has really put everything in a very clear way. There's no more hiding,
right?
Right? Like we are pressured to keep the business going. We are working from home, right? We're restricted in that way. What do you see as well from?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you feel?
I think I'm glad you mentioned the pandemic because I think my observation, or what the pandemic did was put a microscope on pre-existing issues. It just kind of brought them to the surface. It made them so much bigger, and the lines just got so much blurrier between work and home, and and just really no breaks, and even things like a lot of people were seemed to me to be happy to not have to commute anymore, and they filled that time with other work things. So it's not like it was this found time got replaced with more working.
Endless Zooms.
And,
one Zoom after another.
Absolutely.
Been dealing with that this last year, right?
And I think too, when I think about business leaders in particular, and you mentioned at the beginning, like the sandbox, I've met so many wonderful people here who are so driven, like they're really high achievers, they're passionate,
type A
or whatever. Yeah, right. And there's that pride and ownership of whatever it is that you're doing, and so I think it can be, sometimes our strengths become our weakness in that we overdo it. Yeah. So I think business leaders probably often fall into that category where, they're go, this is my thing, and maybe forget to take care of that. Taking care of themselves is just as much a part of the job as, the strategic plan or the whatever the next project is. Yeah. We forget that oxygen and on the airplane metaphor to put our oxygen on first before we can help other people. Yeah. I think burnout is something that's been talked about a lot during the pandemic. Probably previously, but for sure, definitely during the pandemic. Yep. And it's high achievers are the ones who experience burnout because they just keep going, and almost, I want to say, having been burnt out before myself, thinking that you're an exception. Yeah. That will happen to me. I've got, I'll figure it out. I always figure it out, and not realizing that your internal resources are just kind of getting depleted.
And that's a part of what we want to do in our conversations, right, for our viewers, is to be fully able to talk about our experiences and what we've been through in our own wellness journey. And I think you've already kind of touched on that. And I think, maybe we can talk more personal to our audience about our own wellness journey and our challenges. And you started talking about a burnout.
Yeah, so for me, it's about 2.5 years ago now, and I didn't recognize that that's what was happening. And it was that metaphor of the frog in the boiling water. Yes. In retrospect, I see that that's what happened. It was gradual. All the things. I was a new mom. It was my first year back to work after my first being a new mom, and being back to work, and so juggling that, and I was in a new role that was in a field that isn't super familiar to me. I was commuting from north of Barrie to Vaughan, so just like it was just all these kind of perfect storm of things. And before I had my daughter, I could just kind of do it all. Yeah. And it wasn't, I didn't realize how much things had changed when I went back to working. That, commuting 3 to 4 hours a day isn't going to work for me anymore, or my family anymore. I hadn't fully registered to me that my values had changed in terms of how I want to spend my time. So as much as I love working, I now have another little person who needs me, and I need time with her. And so, anyways, all that led to my doctor saying, I think you need to take a break. And at first I was like, no, that's not it. There's something wrong, right? Like I was hoping there was something physically wrong with me to explain, why am I so tired? Why can't I stop crying for no reason? I'm not really a crier. And she said, I think you might need to take a break. And part of me felt relieved, and part of me was like, you're probably right.
I mean, that's a hard news to hear.
Right? Because like I was thinking, not
what do you mean?
Not me.
Not me.
Figured, I'm that somehow that meant I'm not strong enough, or I'm not good enough, or all those messages were coming. So I took the break, and it didn't take long of sort of taking that pause for me to realize actually how depleted I was. And then the people around me who know me really well were like, yeah, you're like a shell of the Jackie that we know. There's just and so that was a huge catalyst for me to realize, oh man, not only at work, but also as a mom, like I want a role model for my daughter, what healthy living looks like. I don't want this to happen to her, so I need to, model building a life that includes myself as a priority. So I did. I just really re-engineered my life.
Like reframing, right? And finding the tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of things have stemmed from that over the past 2.5 years for me. I have a morning routine where I meditate and do yoga and do my workout at, Monday to Friday before anyone else in the house is awake.
Yeah.
I'm not a morning person. That's not natural for me. It's a choice because those things are important to me, and it's the only way they're going to fit in to my day.
Correct.
That I can make sure that they fit into my day.
You've switched that.
I prioritize. I put myself
exactly.
literally the first thing of the day.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What about you?
So for me, my sort of aha moment, really, because I think naturally there is always an attention to wellness or wanting to be healthy, right? Sometimes it's a diet, which God forbid, it's not the way to go. And so you sort of are aimless, right? There's not a specific strategy. And in my sort of history is that I was a competitive figure skater, and I had, as I got older, my injuries started to become an issue.
Right. And
so then we had a life-changing event with my mother being diagnosed with ALS, so Lou Gehrig's disease. So pretty significant from, for her, for our family, very emotional, very difficult. As you know, it's a terminal illness. It's not treated. Like it's just about, making them comfortable as the disease progresses. And so it was very much a clear mirror of, okay, what's happening? What do I need to do? So it was twofold because I was having pain.
Right.
I was having pain from, I have developed osteoarthritis in my ankle because of injuries.
Oh, wow.
And if you don't treat arthritis, this kind of arthritis, it could get worse. So, and then feeling sort of, how do I minimize my risk? Not really thinking that I was going to have my mom's illness because it has a small genetic component, but it was more about an overall strategy of what I was going to do to sort of make some priority shifts, right? Again, feeling like I was taking care of everybody. And by the time it was time for me, come 9 o'clock, come 9 o'clock at night, I just didn't have anything left, right? And pain was becoming an issue. And it was also a mental health journey as well. I really did both at the same time. Again, because it is personal. It really, there's no right way of doing it. So I found myself in a position to reach out to people that were going to help me achieve those goals. Because sometimes we think we could do it all by ourselves. Right? Like we think,
or we don't want to admit to other people.
Yes,
or ask for help or whatever. Right.
Exactly. And it began more on the physical side, right? Having a better routine, finding something that I enjoyed, getting a specialist to really help me manage the arthritis that I was diagnosed, or sort of my physical wellness, right, through treatment, and finding the person that was also going to be there for the journey, right? It wasn't about just treating one ailment. It was about the journey of discovering that I wanted to do some shifts, right? And it wasn't going to be this smooth line of progression.
Right.
And reaching out to professionals to work on my mental health, dealing with someone who was going to pass away.
Right.
Not knowing when.
Right. Anticipating grief.
Yes.
Yeah.
You knew it was happening. It wasn't something you could control at all. It was out of my control, of hers as well, and our family, and coming to terms with the end of a relationship. And that, was really difficult. And you need someone to kind of guide you through and go through that little bit of a roller coaster of anger, and sort of the grief was happening while she was alive, rather than after.
Right.
But we still have the grief, because sadly my mom did pass away early 2020. And so that journey for me was now just 2 years in. And I could look back now and see all the progress. But that was really the events that brought me to the realization things needed to change. And we're all getting older. we want to grow old, gracefully.
Yes.
With less
things
aches
aren't
and
as
pains.
forgiving as we get older. Absolutely. So, given, we both had our experiences, and I think most people have.
Yeah, we're not alone in this.
No, not at all. And I think especially during the pandemic,
Yes.
one of the gifts I see that the pandemic has given is, I think, a bit more empathy, compassion, and bringing these types of conversations forward that needed to be happening before the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Yep.
And so, in your field, what do you see as like the solutions or things that you would be offering someone who, if they've listened this far and they're like, okay, I'm interested in learning more, what would you be recommending?
So, there's a lot of great programs built in to employee benefits, which is just fantastic. And the pandemic actually enhanced some of those accesses that we need for us and our employees. Simply thinking about employee assistance programs, thinking about promoting the mental health aspect, so that when someone is going through a journey or a decision, they've done the self-reflecting on how they want to start, they have tools at their fingertips, right? Through their program. Right. So that was a big part of that. Virtual healthcare got a huge boost during the pandemic, where most insurers are offering embedded programs. So again, you can pick up a phone and get the help you need at any time, right? So those are some key things that allow us to take that first step. That's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Whatever that goal is or thing you want to work on, it's that first step. And you might go first, second, back one.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's definitely challenging. And from your side, have you seen some strategies that you can work or recommend?
At this point in the conversation, what I think is just most important is an element of self-reflection on the part of the leader to and like really being honest with yourself, like, how am I actually doing? Because other people can tell. Whether or not you're being honest with yourself, other people know how you're doing. And so if you can kind of take pause and give yourself a little bit of time to really think about, how am I actually doing? Because everyone else already kind of knows how I'm actually doing. Not the details, but just people get a sense of like, yeah, that person's flourishing or they're struggling or somewhere in between. So, if you're a business leader who's genuinely interested in being a role model of, someone who is thriving for your employees to follow, then, take stock a little bit of like, how am I actually doing? What could be a little bit different, a little bit better? What's that first like micro step? Is my life actually, one of my favorite tools is the Wheel of Life. It comes out of the coaching world. It's a way of, you kind of just look at all the aspects of your life, and if you score them out of 10, how satisfied are you with those areas of your life, and how satisfied do you want to be? Because you don't necessarily want everything in your life to be a 10.
No, it cannot. It can't be everything.
It can't be. And someone might say, as long as my physical health is an 8, that's actually okay for me. But right now it's a 6.
Yeah.
So I like that tool because it allows you to, self-reflect, look at all aspects of your life, because there's more to life than just work and just physical. We're dynamic human beings. And then you look at, okay, where doesn't it line up? In which areas of my life am I not aligned with how I want to be? And what is one little thing I could do this week or this month to move
this day
to move this 5 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10. And so maybe it's that I'm going to drink a bit more water today. It's those little things, but it helps to make it feel more manageable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think this is probably a good point to stop this first conversation, because I think what our goal in our next episode is to really do a deeper dive on self-care.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's a lot more to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So today was just an overall intro to our episodes and our conversations.
Yeah.
But I think, we'll do a lot more of a deep dive on our next episode.
Next time. Okay.
So hopefully
Awesome.
everyone will join us.
Yes. We'll see you there.